My name is Alina. I'm 26 years old, and I live in a quiet town nestled in the southern countryside of England. When I was young, I used to close my eyes and dream of a simple, beautiful life. A little house with a garden, one or two children, a good man who would love me unconditionally, laughter in the kitchen, love that lasts. I thought it would be easy. I thought love meant safety. But dreams don't always unfold the way you imagine. I met him when I was 22. His name was Nathan. He was 25, tall, with brown hair and eyes that seemed to carry all the stars in the sky. He smiled often. He was quick to laugh, even quicker to charm. We met at a friend's birthday party. He asked for my number. I remember the way my heart fluttered when I gave it to him. The next morning, I received a message. Would you like to meet for coffee? I said yes. That coffee turned into hours of conversation. One meeting became many. He brought me flowers, made me laugh until my stomach hurt. Every night, he called to say goodnight. I felt special. I felt seen. After 3 months, I told him I loved him. He smiled and said, I love you too. I believed him. I believed in us. We stayed together for a year. I worked at the local supermarket. Nathan worked at a car repair garage. We didn't have much, but I felt rich with joy. I imagined our future. I imagined children with his eyes and my smile. Then one morning, I woke up feeling sick. I thought it was just the flu, but it didn't go away. My best friend, Clara, looked at me with wide eyes and said, maybe you're pregnant. I laughed it off, but something inside me shifted. I bought a test. I waited, and then I saw the result. 2 lines. My hands trembled. My breath caught in my throat. I was going to be a mother. That evening, I went to Nathan's flat. I looked into his eyes and said, I have news. He sat up straighter. What is it? He asked. I said, I'm pregnant. His expression changed. He went quiet. He looked away. Are you sure? He whispered. Yes, I said. I took a test, I'm sure. He stood up and walked to the window. He didn't turn around. He didn't hold my hand. And then he said the words that cracked something inside me. This is not a good time. I'm not ready to be a father. I felt like I couldn't breathe. But we love each other, I said. He didn't respond, just stood there, lost in thought. Finally, he muttered, I need time. That night, he didn't touch me, didn't kiss me. I lay awake in silence, feeling the distance grow between us. In the morning, he left early. See you later, he said. But something told me I wouldn't. Days passed. He stopped calling. He didn't answer my texts. One day, I went to his flat and knocked on the door. No answer. I sent him one final message. He replied with just 3 words. I'm sorry. Goodbye. I sat on my bed and cried until I couldn't cry anymore. I was pregnant, and I was alone. I told my parents. My mother cried with me. My father was silent for a moment, then said, We're here for you, Alina. I moved back into their house. My childhood room became the space where I would grow into a mother. Every day, I felt more tired. My belly grew. I went to the doctor, and for the first time, I heard my baby's heartbeat. A soft, fast thump, thump, thump. I cried and smiled at the same time. That sound, so small, so strong, was a promise. A heartbeat meant hope. I worked as long as I could, bought little clothes, a baby blanket, a crib. I was terrified, but I wanted to be ready. One night, the pain came. It was sudden, sharp, relentless. My mother rushed me to the hospital. I gripped her hand through every contraction, every wave of fear. And then, after hours of pain, I heard a cry. A small, beautiful cry. "It's a girl," the nurse said. They placed her on my chest. She was tiny, warm, soft like a cloud. I looked at her, tears in my eyes, and whispered, "Hello, baby. I'm your mom." I named her Mia, my beautiful Mia. In that moment, I knew my life had changed forever. The first few nights at home with Mia were the hardest. We had no routine, only exhaustion. Mia cried often. I walked the hallway back and forth, holding her close, whispering lullabies I barely remembered. My body was sore. My eyes burned from lack of sleep. There were moments I sat on the edge of my bed, holding her tiny body, and cried quietly, trying not to wake my parents. But in between the tiredness, there were these beautiful, fleeting moments, like when she wrapped her tiny fingers around mine, or the first time she smiled in her sleep. Those moments were like sunlight breaking through clouds. They reminded me why I had to keep going. Nathan never came. He never called, never asked about Mia. One afternoon, I saw him in town. He was walking on the opposite side of the street. He glanced at me for a second, then looked away. He didn't stop. He didn't speak. I had so many words sitting heavy on my tongue. I wanted to shout, to ask him, "How can you ignore your daughter? How can you pretend we don't exist?" But I stayed silent. I looked down at Mia, asleep in her stroller, and whispered, "You don't need him. You have me." When Mia turned 5 months old, I went back to work. My mother watched her while I stocked shelves and served customers. Every second away from Mia felt like an ache in my chest. But we needed the money. At work, I smiled and said, "Have a nice day," to strangers while my feet ached and my heart missed my baby. I came home every evening worn out, but there was never time to rest. There were bottles to wash, diapers to change, clothes to fold. I'd feed Mia dinner, give her a bath, read her a story. I had no time for myself, but each time she laughed or held out her arms to me, I felt strength rise in my bones again. One night, I was sitting in the kitchen after putting Mia to bed. My tea had gone cold. My eyes were heavy. I looked at the wall and said to myself, "You're doing this, Alina. You're doing it alone." And for the first time in weeks, I smiled, because I realized I wasn't just a woman anymore. I was a mother. I was becoming someone new. Mia grew fast. She started sitting up on her own giggling at her toys. She found joy in the smallest things, like the crinkle of a paper bag or the jingling of a spoon. Her laughter filled our home. It was the music of our days. But loneliness still crept in. My old friends had their lives. They went to parties, posted pictures of dinners and travels. They didn't come by much. And when they did, they didn't know what to say. I didn't blame them. We were in different worlds now. I spent my evenings singing lullabies, watching cartoons, and whispering to Mia, "You're not alone. I'm here." Sometimes I wondered if anyone really saw me, if anyone out there knew how hard I was trying. And then, one day, something small changed everything. I was at the grocery store, working the checkout line, when a woman came through with a baby in a stroller. She looked tired, just like me. Our eyes met. She smiled and said, "It's hard, isn't it?" I nodded. "Yes," I said, "but they're worth it." She leaned forward slightly and whispered, "You're doing a good job." I don't think she knew what those words meant to me, but I held on to them. That night, I went home and told Mia, "You're my sunshine." She looked up at me and grinned. I felt warmth spread through my chest. I was still tired. I was still poor, but I wasn't broken. I was strong. I was a mother to be continued. Mia was now over a year old. She had started to take her first steps, tiny, wobbly strides across the living room floor, arms stretched out for balance, her giggles echoing through the house. Every stumble, every fall, she rose with more determination. And each time she did, I clapped and said, "You're so brave." And she was. She was teaching me that falling isn't the end. It's just part of growing. Life was still hard. My job at the supermarket paid little, but it was enough to keep us going. I stopped buying anything for myself. My jeans were old and my shoes worn, but Mia had warm clothes, good food, and toys that made her eyes light up. That was enough for me. Some days, I felt invisible. I served customers with a polite smile while my thoughts were miles away on doctor appointments, rent, formula, fevers. There were moments I felt like I was moving through life in silence, like a shadow. But then I'd come home and Mia would shout, "Mama," with her arms open wide, and everything made sense again. There were also days I felt scared. Mia caught a fever one night. Her body was burning, and she wouldn't stop crying. I called the doctor. He told me it might be a virus, to keep her cool and give her water. I held her in my arms all night, singing lullabies, whispering, "Please get better." When morning came and the fever hadn't gone, my mom drove us to the clinic. The nurse gave her medicine and reassured me she'd be okay. That night, I didn't sleep, not from fear this time, but from relief. She recovered. She grew stronger. She started to run, to climb, to laugh louder than ever. Every new word she said, every small milestone, filled my heart with pride. I clapped, I hugged her, I whispered, "You are my everything." Still, I was alone. One day, I took her to the park. She ran on the grass, chasing bubbles and waving at other children. I sat on the bench, tired but peaceful, And then I saw him. Nathan, he was at the other side of the park, holding hands with another woman. She had red hair and a kind smile. They looked happy. I froze. I didn't want Mia to see him. To her, he was no one. She didn't know his face. She didn't know his name. And that broke me a little. Not because I wanted him back, but because I wished he had tried. That night, I didn't cry. I just sat on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He had made his choice, and I was done waiting for someone who had already left. Days later, something changed. I received a letter from the council. They had approved my application for housing support. We were getting a flat. It was small, just one bedroom, a tiny kitchen, and a living area. But it was ours. I cried when I held the key in my hand. We packed our things. My mom helped fold Mia's little clothes. My dad loaded the boxes into his car. When we arrived, the flat smelled of fresh paint and new beginnings. That first night, we had toast and tea on the floor. Mia dropped her spoon and laughed. I looked at her and said, "This is home now." It wasn't perfect, but it was peace. In our new space, life became quieter. Still hard, but somehow lighter. I cooked simple meals. I paid bills. I read bedtime stories. Mia loved the one about the blue bear. She would giggle and say, "Bear is funny." I kissed her cheek and replied, "You are funny too." Some nights I felt lonely, not for Nathan, but for connection, for someone to talk to, for arms to hold me after a long day. But I never let the loneliness make me bitter. I reminded myself, you chose to stay. You chose to fight. You are not alone. You have Mia. And then came a small moment that stayed with me. At the supermarket, a customer, another mother with tired eyes, smiled at me and said, "You're doing a good job." Her words felt like a hug. I carried them home in my heart and whispered them to Mia as I tucked her in. "You're my reason. You're my strength." I was still working long hours, still counting every coin. But every morning, when Mia woke up and smiled at me with her sleepy eyes and messy hair, I knew I had everything I needed. Mia was now 3. She could talk in full sentences. She sang little songs to herself while stacking blocks or brushing her doll's hair. Her favorite word was why. Why is the sky blue? Why do birds fly? Why do shoes have laces? Every question reminded me how much she was growing, how curious she was about the world, how much she trusted me to be her guide through it. We had our routines: morning porridge, daycare drop-off, my shift at the supermarket, evening dinners with simple soups or rice, a bedtime story. Her favorite was the one about the red bus. Every night she'd say, "The bus goes beep beep," and laugh. I'd laugh too, even when I was too tired to keep my eyes open. We didn't have much, but we had rhythm. We had peace. But sometimes peace is fragile. One Friday night, after my shift, I came home and kicked off my shoes. My mom had watched Mia that evening. Mia ran to me, arms wide, shouting, "Mommy, you're home." I scooped her into a hug. My mom smiled. She missed you, she said softly. Later that night, after my mom left and Mia was playing quietly with her doll, she looked at me and asked, "Mom, do I have a dad?" My heart stopped. I sat down next to her and held her small hand. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" She looked at me with those soft brown eyes and said, "At school, my friend said her daddy picks her up. Do I have a daddy too?" I swallowed the lump in my throat. "Yes, you do, but he doesn't live with us." "Why not?" I took a breath. "Because he made a choice. He decided not to stay." She looked down at her doll, then up at me. "But I have you." My eyes stung. I pulled her close. "Yes, baby, you have me, and I will never leave you." That night, after she fell asleep, I stood in the kitchen and let the tears fall. Quietly, slowly, not because I was broken, but because sometimes even the strong need space to feel. And then, like life often does, something beautiful happened. A few days later, Mia's teacher approached me after class. She said, "I just wanted you to know Mia is doing so well. She's curious and kind. She's a joy to have in class." I smiled, trying not to cry. The teacher placed a hand on my shoulder. "You're doing a good job." Those words echoed in my chest all the way home. That year, Mia started school. On her first day, she wore a brand new uniform and held my hand tightly. "Will you wait for me?" she asked. I knelt beside her, brushing her hair behind her ear. "I will always wait for you," I said. She walked through the doors, then turned and waved. I waved back, my heart aching with pride. Then I sat on a bench outside and cried, not from sadness, but from something deeper, from the realization that we had come so far. Our life was still simple, still full of challenges. But every time Mia smiled and said, "Good morning, Mom," with joy in her voice, I knew this was more than enough. Mia was now 4. She was taller, with longer hair and an even bigger laugh. She made friends easily and came home from school with stories about them. One afternoon, she said, "Mom, my friend Lucy has a dog. Can we get a dog too?" I smiled and said, "Maybe one day." I had taken on more hours at work. My boss, who used to be skeptical about me needing time off, had slowly become more understanding. I said yes to every shift. I needed the extra money for Mia's shoes, for school supplies, for a future I wanted her to feel secure in. Some days, I was so tired I didn't remember what I had eaten, or if I had eaten at all. But I never let Mia see that part. I saved my strength for her. One Friday, I came home late. My mom was still there, waiting with Mia. As soon as I walked through the door, Mia ran to me. "Mommy, you're home," she said, wrapping her arms around my legs. I hugged her tightly. My mom smiled, and for a moment, I let myself breathe. I was doing this. We were doing this. After my mom left, Mia played quietly while I made tea. Then, in that quiet way children often ask the deepest questions, she looked at me and said, "Mom, where is my dad now?" I froze. I turned to her, slowly sat down. "Why do you ask, sweetheart?" "At school, some kids said daddies come to things, but I've never seen mine." I reached for her hand. "Your daddy is not with us, not because of you. He made a choice, but his choice doesn't define who you are. She looked down, but I have you. My heart cracked and healed at the same time. Yes, I whispered, you have me, and I will never leave. That night, after she had fallen asleep, I stood in the hallway just outside her room. I watched her chest rise and fall, her fingers curled around her blanket. I whispered to the darkness, let her always know this love is enough. I had spent so many years proving to myself that I could do this alone. But the truth is, I was never alone. Mia had been with me every step of the way. One afternoon, while picking her up from school, her teacher pulled me aside. Mia's one of the brightest and kindest children in class. She's always helping others. She asks beautiful questions. You're doing a wonderful job, Alina. I nodded, holding back tears. Those moments when someone truly sees you, not just the tired eyes, or the packed lunch, or the rushed drop-off, but really sees you, they stay in your heart. Back at home, Mia sat at the kitchen table coloring. She looked up and said, Mom, I'm making a card for you. It says, thank you for being the best. I walked over and knelt beside her. Why are you making me a card, baby? Because you do everything, and you make me feel safe. I hugged her, holding on for just a second longer than usual. This is what love looks like, not flowers or promises whispered in the dark, not grand gestures or expensive dinners. Love is a tired mother reading one more bedtime story. It's a child feeling safe. It's choosing to stay when you could walk away. It's small hands reaching for you in the middle of the night. Love is this life we've built, quiet, messy, sacred. Time moved quietly. Mia was now 5. She had started school in her new uniform with bright eyes and a pink bag covered in stars, the same one she had chosen herself after inspecting every single bag in the store. Too big, she said, too small. And then she held up the one with stars and whispered, this one. She wore that bag everywhere in the flat, to the store, even to bed once. She walked around the house like a little student, serious and proud. I watched her from the kitchen doorway, my chest tight with pride and a quiet ache. She was growing faster than I was ready for. I still worked long hours, still counted coins, still bought secondhand jeans and passed up coffee shop visits. But there was joy in the small things, like Mia saying, good morning, Mom, with her sleepy voice, or showing me her drawings of stick figures and rainbows. We didn't have much, but we had each other. On weekends, we went to the park. She ran across the grass, her curls bouncing, laughter trailing behind her like a song. One sunny Sunday, I sat on our usual bench, sipping from a paper cup, watching her share her toy car with another little girl. A man sat beside me. He looked about my age, kind eyes, gentle voice. Is she your daughter? He asked. Yes, I said. She looks happy. I looked at her, running with the others. Her face was glowing. She is, I said. He nodded. That's all that matters. And for a moment, I saw myself from the outside, not as someone tired or struggling, but as someone who had done the impossible. I had raised a little girl, built a quiet life out of broken beginnings, created joy where there was once heartbreak. Mia ran up and said, "Mommy, look, I found a feather." She held it up like treasure. I smiled. "It's beautiful." She tucked it behind her ear. "I want to fly one day." I knelt down. "You already are." That evening, after dinner and stories, she lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. "Mom." "Yes, baby. When I grow up, I want to be strong like you." I smiled, leaned down, and kissed her forehead. "You already are." Then I sat beside her as she fell asleep, her little hand wrapped around mine. I looked around our tiny flat books on the shelf, a drawing taped to the fridge, Mia's shoes by the door, and I thought, this is home. This is enough. I wasn't waiting for anyone anymore. I wasn't hoping for someone to come and save us, because I had already saved us, not through perfection, but through persistence, through every tear, every decision, every bedtime song and early morning wake up. Through every moment, I chose love over fear. And now, when I hear her laugh, when I see her run toward the future without fear,